Trusts are still an important vehicle in my mind for providing certain structures to achieve financial independence and financial outcomes. There's a lot of criticisms around trusts, and over the course of the next couple of months I'll be looking at certain aspects of it. But one of those things is to always look at what the fundamental purpose of the trust is. And one of those is a concept called the living will. Now, we all remember the American movies when some wealthy relative falls off their perch and everyone goes along to a very big room and they all sit around in dark colours and leather embossed seats waiting for the envelope to be opened and find what crumbs shall fall from the table. Alas, in reality, it's not at all like that. Generally, the executors are appointed and they work through the process of unwinding the affairs of the deceased. Trusts, however, are called the living will because as the settlor of the trust, you get to choose how you want to actually distribute your assets and to give your trustees guidance on how to do that. So, for example, we have a trust, very simple trust, and it has $100,000 in it, which has been settled by the settlor. Now, take me for the settlor, for example. I've put $100,000 cash into this trust. My parents fall off their perch and they give me a further $300,000. I place this into the trust. Now, to protect myself against any future claim from any future spouse, mistress, boyfriend, whatever the case might be, I decide to ring fence and protect this for my children. And in doing so, I say that the beneficiaries are myself, because I'm greedy, and my 3 children. Now let's say, for example, my oldest is 8, coming up 9, and so in 10 years' time he decides that he wants to go down to Dunedin and study medicine. And in doing so, I decide that I'm going to buy a property for him to live in. Well, I pay rent, I might as well own a property, and at the end of it, he can get the gain that's been made on that property if he looks after it, as I know or have heard of notorious Dunedin flats. So the inheritance trust could use the $400,000 or whatever value that's accumulated to and purchase a house for the benefit of my son. He does his 5-year medical degree, and at the end of that, the property is sold, making a $100,000 profit. Now, during the course of that, I can then say to my son, that becomes your $100,000. And I may then say to my trustees, I wish you to do this for my other 2 children, to help and encourage them. So through some mysterious accident involving arsenic, I disappear, and my trustees then take over running my trust. I have a thing called a memorandum of wishes. And in that memorandum of wishes, I've clearly stated my intentions for my children. I wish the trust to provide for their education, to accommodate them while they're being educated, and they can receive gains from any sale of those properties. I've created a precedent, and my trustees have a memorandum of wishes. But while I'm still alive, I can effectively control their inheritance as a trustee to work out how they can benefit from it. So rather than waiting for me to fall off my perch for them to get access to these funds, they can enjoy the benefit of those funds at that time. So the trust still holds a very valuable vehicle for ensuring that ring-fenced property, which is separate property being inherited property, is kept for the benefit of myself and the children. Now, an example of that could be that 80% of the revenue is to be allocated to the beneficiaries. So every year, the trustees would consider myself and my 3 children and determine who's the best person to get that 80%. Now that could be, for example, my middle child decides that she's going to go off and become a ballerina and study at the Juilliard School of Music. That costs a small fortune, and so the 80% may be allocated through to her to provide for her education. That all comes as a benefit from using these funds, and it doesn't have to come out of Dad's pocket, it can come out of the inheritance trust. There are some tax benefits that can flow from that, but those are incidental to the purpose of providing this flow of funds to enable the children rather than waiting for me to fall off my perch. So again, if you have inheritances coming from parents or from grandparents and you wish to ring-fence them into a multi-generational vehicle, an inheritance trust is the way to consider.